Alien Abduction Incident in Lake County is a 1998 found-footage horror film directed by Dean Alioto. It's a remake of the director's own movie from 1989. This remake would be a made-for-TV film with a higher budget. My attachment to this film comes from the experience that my brother and I had watching this on television in 1998 when I was only 6 years old. I was big into shows like Beyond Belief, Fact or Fiction. So when this movie was about to air, my brother and I were glued to the screen, and I was still naive enough to believe anything.
The home video you are about to see documents an alleged case of alien abduction. A family from Lake County, Minnesota was reported missing by relatives on Thanksgiving weekend. A search of their remote farm produced some disturbing evidence and a 6-hour home videotape. You are about to see excerpts from Tommy's video. Is his tape the most powerful evidence yet that aliens exist? Or is there some other explanation for the disappearance of the McPhersons?
To make my experience even scarier, here in New Zealand, the television network initially aired this movie without the end credits. It wasn't until some later rerun that my brother and I watched it again, and we stuck around for the credits, which included writers, actors, and so on. I remember being so disappointed. I still like to revisit this movie from time to time. Oddly, the first time this movie aired, it was actually the UPN version. I got in touch with the director who told me regarding this UPN version of the movie, which aired first, that the network fired him before chopping up his feature-length movie into a 45-minute TV special. The network made some incredibly bizarre alteration choices. Spooky music was added. Stock sound effects were added all over the place.
That's gunshots!
Oh my god!
Hey,
What's happening?
okay.
New visual effects were made which looked absolutely terrible, even for the time.
Could the white light be an alien probe? Digital enhancement shows the object's true three-dimensionality.
What the hell is it? What is it? I'm trying to do it!
And hilariously, the decision was made, for reasons I can't even imagine, to record new voice lines over the footage. These voice lines were clearly recorded cleanly in a studio, and whoever did the performances sound nothing like the actual actors.
Oh my god, what'd they do to the gun?
What I didn't do it, Grandma.
So this bizarre 1-hour version is what aired initially. It wasn't until some later date that I saw the movie in its proper feature-length form. The UPN television edit isn't really relevant, but it's fun to talk about and speculate about the bizarre choices made by the network after they fired the director. I don't know what was happening behind the scenes, but clearly this movie was hurt by the meddling of TV executives. A later airing of the feature-length director's cut didn't help as much as it should have, because this version had its own problems. And this is why I started working on a fan re-edit. Incident in Lake County is one of those movies that could easily be improved in the edit, so that's what I have set out to do. My first change to the presentation of the story was to cut out all of these interview segments. We have actors giving supposed expert testimony, discussing whether or not this footage is real or a hoax. I imagine that this mockumentary presentation style was meant to make the whole movie feel more real. But to me, it has the opposite effect. The first interview is with a sheriff who explains how the police found the McPherson tape and the family's whereabouts are still unknown. This one is fine, but it isn't really needed. The second interview is with a science fiction filmmaker. In reality, this is a cameo from the director himself.
This tape unnerved me for a couple reasons. Number one, these are clearly not actors. The family members are not working off any script. There's also no plot line other than getting the hell out of the house.
This interview is a problem because these people at times clearly are actors. They clearly are working from a script, and there is a plot, complete with character development and structure. So when the story stops for interviews like this one, I'm just reminded that I'm watching a fake movie. The third interview is with an abductee, talking about how traumatized he is. This one is okay, but again, it doesn't really add anything. I don't need to be told that getting abducted by aliens is a frightening experience. In general, it's probably not a good idea for a horror movie to essentially tell your audience to be scared, you know. The fourth interview is right after the infamous Orb Scene. A visual effects artist says he thinks this scene is faked with post-processing. He's obviously right, and I don't think it's a good idea to draw the attention of the audience to this fact. I suppose this is included to give the impression that what you're watching is a two-sided documentary, but I don't think this movie needs to have this fake skepticism shoehorned in. The fifth interview is with a psychologist who explains how bizarre the little girl is behaving. The movie itself reminds the audience of this about 28 times, so we definitely don't need this segment. The sixth interview is with an anthropologist who's speculating about what motivations an alien race might have for abducting and experimenting on humans.
In fact, the abduction of the McPhersons could be construed as a higher species gathering samples of a lower species.
The UPN version adds to this.
These could be graduate students doing their thesis research on the DNA of Earthlings as a class and looking for all the diseases and all the cures for diseases.
They all have implants. That means that every one of them has been abducted before. They might not know it, but this isn't the first time for any of them.
I'm convinced that some Earthlings have had implants put in them. They're transponders, just like airplanes have them at airports. I would be astonished if aliens weren't smart enough, if they're doing a longitudinal study following over time, they would want to locate the test specimens. If aliens got 1,000 years on us, maybe 1,000,000, they're going to be able to make very sophisticated things that are very small and can give all kinds of information, not just here I am, but maybe temperature, pressure, all kinds of things.
These are the only interviews that I really like. If the other interview segments had insight like this, I'd be happy to leave them in. The sixth and final interview is with a US Air Force guy, and it's the worst one. He has a child's drawing of a grey alien behind him, and this shot is lit with green and pink lights like an Italian film. He says the government denies the existence of aliens as a disinformation campaign.
All the government denial regarding the tape fits right into their pattern of disinformation. They figure if they say it didn't happen, it didn't happen.
This is the complete opposite of the truth. Intel agencies were pushing the alien narrative, not covering it up. I think this movie is better with all of these interviews seamlessly cut. So now you can watch Incident in Lake County as a pure found footage horror movie, as opposed to a mockumentary kind of presentation. One change to the story I wanted to make relates to this conflict between Kurt and his sister's new boyfriend, Matthew. Matthew turns up to dinner, he's black, and Kurt immediately starts being racist towards him. He doesn't even really pretend that the reason he objects to the relationship is for any reason other than he's black. This is such a forced and tired trope, and I wish it was never part of this movie. Unfortunately, this isn't something you can just cut out, because without this conflict, Matthew has no real reason to be in this movie. So this is what I did with it. I cut out the first 2 scenes between Kurt and Matthew before the aliens show up. So now, when you watch my edit, this is what happens. Kurt is curious about Mel's new boyfriend.
Matthew, hey. Is that a new boyfriend?
Yeah.
What's this one do? Brian?
I don't know. He's studying to be a psych professor or something.
And when Matthew shows up to dinner with Melanie, Kurt is just oddly ignoring him. I removed the 2 scenes of racism completely, so instead what we get is Kurt is just not getting along with Matthew, but the audience doesn't know why. Kurt is biting his tongue, basically, trying to have a civil Thanksgiving dinner and, keep his feelings to himself. It's not until the aliens show up that Kurt becomes extremely afraid and stressed. His whole demeanour changes from that point on. So that's when Matthew is like, lol, what's up with all these white guys freaking out about space aliens? And that's when Kurt lashes out at Matthew and has to stop himself from saying the N-word. I just feel that this is a more believable way to start this conflict. The escalation happens more realistically, and I think it makes for better character dynamics. And of course we still get the payoff later on when Kurt trusts Matthew with his gun. In a perfect world, this script would have had a better conflict than the tired old bigotry trope. But this is what we have, and I think my edit improves this subplot. The only other story-related change I made was cutting Tommy's goodbye video. This Oscar scene adds nothing, and the kid's acting isn't great. He's not terrible. I think his crying is mostly believable, but when he says lines like, "We were attacked by aliens," I just think it has the potential to sound funny.
We were attacked by aliens.
Plus, this movie is way too long, in my opinion, and this was a good place to bring the runtime down even further. The lack of sound effects in the original cut of this movie is confusing. It is established that the aliens can mind control the McPherson family and make them see and hear things that aren't there. But there are definitely cases where there should be sound effects and they just aren't there. I decided to get in touch with Dean Alioto, the director, and ask him about this. In the feature-length version, the biggest confusion for me is sound effects. It's established that the aliens can make the characters see and hear things that aren't there, but there also seems to be sounds missing. For example, at 54:30, a gunshot is heard outside, but the placeholder sound is left in the final cut. I only point this out because at 57 minutes, Rosie impresses everyone with her improved piano skill, but again there's no soundtrack. I thought at first the music was just meant to be in the characters' minds, but Rosie apologizes for playing too loudly. Is this another case of an incomplete soundtrack? If so, I'd want to add a piano recording to my fan edit, but the question is, what piece of music did you envision her playing? So, Dean responded, I have no recall on sound. It's been 28 years since I've seen the film. My vague memory was that the song was something Mozart-like. I suppose if I saw these clips, the memory of it might pay me a visit, but after 3 decades, it's like the face on the Sphinx. So I just used my best judgment in adding sound effects to my edit. The UPN edit had ridiculous stock sound effects all over the place.
Hey,
That's better. The phone.
the radio! Yes!
Naturally, I went for a more subtle approach. So these are the sounds I added. I made a low rumbling to go with flashes of lights outside.
Whoa, whoa. What was that?
I added distant mooing and cutting sounds for the famous cow mutilation scene.
They're at the cow. Oh, they're cutting open one of the cows.
Oh,
What are they doing?
quiet.
What are they?
Again, I added cutting sounds and a beefier gun sound for this scene.
Come on.
Cars and light! 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 No!
I added more sound effects for when the alien is on the roof, just to make it sound a bit scarier. I added the missing gunfire sound here.
How are you doing, honey? You okay?
What do you mean?
I don't know.
What was that? That's gunshots! That's gunshots!
I used the Transformer explosion from earlier in the movie with bass adjustments.
What do you mean?
I don't know.
What was that? Gunshots! That's gunshots!
I added the missing radio and telephone sounds here. Again, this might be a case where the sounds were meant to be in the characters' minds, but there's no way for me to know. So this is what I did with this scene.
Hey,
That's better. The phone.
the radio! Yes!
What happened?
I don't know.
It's dead.
Hey!
Did you get anything? Hello? 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 Oh, hello?
The biggest challenge was fixing this scene with Rosie on the piano. Earlier in the movie, we hear Rosie practicing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, which is thematically relevant because aliens. I wanted to use another thematically relevant song, but I was limited to the scene itself. We can see where Rosie is sitting and roughly where her hands are moving, so she can't be playing the Second Hungarian Rhapsody or something. I added Beethoven's For Alice, performed by Eric Latz on YouTube. This is a love song, and when Rosie starts playing, 2 characters start kissing. This recording works because it has roughly similar living room reverb, and I think Rosie could be playing it based on her hand positions. I spent ages messing with the reverb and EQ, until it sounded like this recording could be of the same model of piano and heard through the same camera microphone with its limited range. I don't know a thing about music, so I hope this scene works. This is a television movie, and these are television actors. This is both good and bad. It's good because these actors are not instantly recognizable, which helps with the missing persons narrative. But it's bad because this movie has many instances of highly distracting bad acting, and awkward line deliveries. I removed as much as I could. Being a television production, this film bleeps its swear words. This offered me a great opportunity to remove some awkward lines with more bleeps.
Oh my god. Oh god. Is she okay? Oh god. Oh my god. Oh god. Is she okay? Is she okay?
Brian? Hey, wait, maybe there's something on the radio about him, huh?
There's no electricity, Tommy.
Damn!
There's no electricity, Tommy.
I used this trick a handful of times where it worked. We just have to believe that any of the characters swore at that moment. There are also quite a few shots I cut short where the bad acting just happened to be at the very end of the scene. I also cut quite a few brief but awkward line deliveries with silence, or rather ambient silence from the scene. Many of these come from Tommy behind the camera. He's the most annoying character in my opinion. He doesn't know when to shut up. There's this one scene in particular where Tommy goes upstairs alone, where they've killed an alien in another room. Tommy checks in and spends the whole time smack-talking this dead alien for some reason. It's really awful.
Don't even think about messing with me, you little Don't even think about it. Oh, God. All right, you bastard. We'll blow your ass away.
I silenced all of his talking here. I also cut some of Rosie's lines. I don't like to criticize a child actress, but not all kids can be Haley Joel Osment. It's established early on that Rosie is acting suspicious. This is essential to the story, but this movie reminds the audience that something's not right with Rosie every 15 seconds. This is not only insulting to the audience's ability to follow the plot, but it also unnecessarily highlights many bad line deliveries from the little girl. I cut a few of these, but I left in just enough so that the audience can notice Rosie's weird behaviour, even if you're only half paying attention to the film.
Aren't you gonna play Rosie?
I've got other things to take care of.
Answer me! Where are you?
It's okay. Go back in the house and calm down. We all need some tea. Come on, Mom. Come on. No. You can make it. There's already hot water in the kettle. Come on, Melanie. It will give you something to do.
So throughout the entire movie, I have 21 instances of bad acting or awkward line deliveries, either cut, silenced, or bleeped. The infamous Orb Scene. This is when a red light comes inside the house and attacks the family. I find it silly to have the family panicking and screaming about what looks like a laser pointer. There are no sound effects or anything.
What the hell is it? What is it? What is it doing? Oh,
Where's it gone?
hey, where'd it go?
Stay down. Everybody just stay down. Stay down.
Did it go? Where'd it go?
Stay down.
The UPN edit infamously butchered this already bad scene with terrible VFX and these awful stock sound effects.
We pick up Tommy McPherson's tape at 9:19, just before the next dramatic event.
What the hell is it? What is it? What is it doing?
Where's it gone?
Hey, where'd it go?
Stay down.
The way to improve this scene is by going in between these two extremes. I recorded a flickering LED up close and blended it into the existing visual effect, frame by frame. For the sound, I mixed a few recordings together, including a lightsaber chassis that I swung around, matching the movement to the scene. I also added red tints in the room so it looks like this light is actually illuminating. When you just have the red light by itself, it's, very obviously just a post-processing thing. I also added the pixelation and distortion effects that this movie uses elsewhere in an obvious attempt to hide the cheapness of my effect. I'm not really happy with this result, but I still think it's better than the dead silence of the original movie, and it's especially better than that awful UPN version.
Matthew, you stay in at the door, all right?
All right.
Okay. Hey, I want to come.
Tommy, you stay here.
What? What the hell is it? What is it? What are you doing? Where's it gone? Hey, where'd it go?
Stay down. Everybody just stay down. Stay down.
Did it go? Where'd it go?
Stay down.
Oh God, oh God, oh God.
Oh my God! Renee!
For all the faults of the 45-minute UPN version of Alien Abduction, it made one improvement. The scariest scene in this movie happens somewhere in the middle. The UPN version took this scene that was supposed to be in the middle of the story, and they moved it to the end. I think this scene is better and more frightening than the real ending. But to end the movie the way that UPN did, I would have to include some of their ridiculous interview segments, because they were used to explain the gaps in the footage and the different order of events. Otherwise, it just can't be done in a way that makes sense. So my fan edit does keep the alien encounter in the middle where it belongs, and the original ending. The best copy of this movie is 480p. Thankfully it's pretty clean, not too heavily compressed, it's 5 gigabytes, and it's not a VHS rip. It is unfortunately already de-interlaced, so a better de-interlacing method can't really be used. But mostly I would say it looks fine. I adjusted the levels with color curves, bringing the brightest brights to 255 and the darkest darks to 0, or rather the sRGB equivalents. Some scenes needed their own separate adjustments. I gave the whole movie a slightly cooler white balance. Everything was just slightly too orange, especially the candle-lit scenes. Slightly reducing colour saturation further helped with this, as well as fixing some weird skin tones. And now to actually upscale the movie to a decent 1080p file. I purchased a 1-month subscription of BorisFX Continuum plugins. I was not intending to use AI upscaling, but when I saw how good this BorisFX Upres plugin was, I had to use it. It somehow upscales and sharpens the image without the usual AI problems like hallucinated details, weird mangled faces, or overly sharpened out-of-focus areas. I personally used Topaz AI for my own family home videos, but for an actual movie where artistic intent has to be preserved, this BorisFX plugin is great. Also included with this bundle is the plugin Magic Sharp. This is not machine learning based, but it offers much better selective sharpening compared with what I'm able to do with an unsharp mask. Finally, I added grain from the same plugin set. Film grain does a couple of things. It tricks the eyes into thinking there's more detail, and it helps hide compression artifacts and color banding. There are a few scenes where the family, in a panic, leave the house, and you can see streetlights and what could be houses not too far in the distance. This sort of breaks the illusion that this remote farmhouse is actually isolated, so I brushed out those lights. This is the one edit I did that could maybe be called George Lucas style. As much as I hate the Star Wars special editions, I think I finally understand that peculiar mindset that led to putting CGI rocks in front of R2-D2 when he's hiding. Another miscellaneous fix I did was in this part where the actor playing Tommy, he misspeaks.
Tractor battery. We'll put it in the truck. Barn's locked. Do you have the key? Oh, my mom's got it. Shit.
He says my mum instead of just mum when he's talking to his brother. This mistake wouldn't be a big deal, except that this movie treats Kurt, the oldest brother, as a father figure, almost like a stepdad. I know that this misspoken line could confuse the audience, because I was initially confused about their relationship, and I watched a YouTube reviewer who had the same confusion about this particular line.
Barn's locked. Do you have the key? Mom's got it. Shit.
I also shortened the opening crawl, and I made a new title screen using the same font. The original title screen was like a green text saying Alien Abduction with this like animated light, kind of X-Files inspired, I guess. I did many other miscellaneous edits that I think I forgot to write in this script, but this is all the important stuff. And that's my fan edit of Alien Abduction Incident in Lake County. The runtime is 74 minutes, down from 91. I hope that my re-edit can introduce more people to this movie, even if it's just to show a couple of friends. Incident in Lake County can't compare to later found footage classics like the Blair Witch Project, but it's alright. I'm not sure about the legality of sharing this version of the film, but I will look into it.